This should work with all of my thingy majigs applied. I think. I think. I hope so. So we're gonna go here. We're gonna increase the opacity. Right. Because I need to see. That's done. Make sure everything is good. Double check the Discord. I have 102 out of 102. Congratulations, Vesper. You are absolutely a genius. You look at that. I am facing the other way. That's weird. Now that I think about it, when my collar popped up, I kind of look like a Naruto, don't I? Do I need to change my camera angle? Hey, hi, what's up? I am trying to get things looking properly. Things are flipped. Put my lighting back on the usual side. But yes, hi there, Alex. Calb, and Zephyr. My goodness, you are early, says yourself to yourself. Let me just get the camera angles working properly. As I hope they will. Hi there, Fluffy. Gab, did you rest well? I did. I am a little bit lacking in the hours department, but it's because I was busy today. I had to do some stuff and get things finished. And alas, that's how we are now. Yes. Hello. Hello, Ves. Congratulations on crushing that exam. Genius. 102 out of 102. Hi, Reed. How are you? Also, Nordics, greetings. You know, I'm going to flip the camera around. I think it's better if we go like this, and then. There we go. My cinematic view. Or it's just my Vice edge, and then there's Gab in the back. Alright, that's done. So pin number 2 is. Wait. Why is my camera flying in reverse? There we go. The brighter one. So we're currently in the workshop. Hello, Pascal. What's this? I was just really happy about it because my professor last semester was an absolute hard ass. To finally excel is a great feeling, of course. Tap into that noggin of yours. So much knowledge. Putting up Duckworth as always. Look at Reed being the trades dear. Hello, Stars Wolf. I'm okay. You know, despite my lack of sleep, I. Why am I. Hello? There we go. Despite my lack of sleep, in the hours department, I seem to be doing just okay stamina wise, though. I know, I'm not trying to overexert myself. Maybe it's from all the amount of surplus naps I've had during the past few days. It offers me some, you know.
Oh, hey, for months already. Thanks for the great community.
My goodness, Axel, has it already been 4 months? A quarter, no, 4, 8, 12. 1/3 of a year. Thank you for sticking around as long as you have. I'm glad you're having fun and making friends with the others. That means I get to pick on Axel all throughout the rest of the year. Hello, Ard. Hold on. I'm not super duper feeling the camera, so pin 1, pin 2. Oh wow, that's way off. All my flights are reversed. Hello. I can actually go here. Be here? I don't know.
I agree with Axel.
Focus. Semi-auto. Go there. If it's set to look at me, oh, that's not a cool establishing shot. Maybe down here. There we go. Maybe in the workshop. Great. Sure, there we go. You see, adjusting things on the fly midstream ain't exactly the best thing to do. But alas, we must. Okay, reading this. Why, if it isn't Beth, they also have subscribed for 4 months. 4 months? I feel like you've been here for so long, Beth. It's probably because we've been playing a lot of games. Hence, the progress in the friendship bar has been moving quite fast exponentially. But thank you, Beth. I appreciate it. Communityist, yes. Personally, after hour 15 of being awake, all non-essential functions feel like hunger. Okay. That's bad. Go sleep. I agree with that, so that's fantastic to be here. Hold on. I'm super not feeling the camera. There we go. It's gonna have my reflection now. Dramatic and whatnot. It means I need to move backwards a bit. So here. Next, props, stool place. Put the stool there. Move forward again. Fantastic. Or I can be like here. Stool place there. There we go. You know me, I like being artsy fartsy. So we have this shot whenever we talk about something dramatic and deep or profound. We have this, the more casual one. Hi, once I figure out where the camera is. Hello. There it is, I see you. And then we have this, the establishing shot, which will be used later when I go stand up and walk. In fact, I need to check that out right now. Upsy daisy. Oh, I wonder the cord was on my waist tracker. What's this? I agree with Beth and Axel. Oh my gosh. Because I'm glad you guys like it then. No, really. Okay, that is weird. Hello. As you can see, I am wrangling with tracker jitter. I'll see you around, Umbra. Have a great day or evening or whatever you're gonna be doing. Ariel is asking, would you ever be willing to pursue ties with the police force or otherwise fund a private department beyond your... Oh, I see you haven't caught up to the factuals that surrounds me. One, I am not tied to the local law enforcement. No. By term age, I am called a detective because I go investigate. Actually, investigator is more suitable. I investigate things, places, entities, hoo-has and rumors, things that are odd and what's not deemed normal. Oh, if it isn't Wish, hi there. You're finally back to streaming. I hope you refound your mojo. Reed, I feel like you've been here for a year instead of just 4 months. Can't be. How is Battlefield 6? Hi there, Drax. Vesper told me you hopped in VC right as I was like walking outside of my apartment. I had to get my bike fixed earlier. I mean fixed by fixed, I mean clean. um Surprisingly, it's fun. It's not as fun when you are up against the elite Chinese because me and Beth we keep on getting thrown to the China server. I think it's your VPN, Beth. Remember how it gets keep on being routed to China, and it doesn't help. I'm in Southeast Asia too, so yeah, these guys are super good. Surprisingly, me and Beth end up top squad most of the time though. Keb with jitters. I'm okay, laugh. We more of investigate the it's not really paranormal. Paranormal, supernatural. Nah, I leave that to the Ghostbuster guys. My VPN is set to the USA. Why are we fighting the Chinese then? Whenever I'm in BF, and then like the opposing team is like stomping us. I was like, God, these damn Chinamen. Disclaimer: I'm also Chinese, so I can like say stuff to Chinese people. But yeah, what is this? What's causing me? Is it the ground? Hmm. Can't be. I am back in streaming, says Wish, but not quite funny. I just need to make some new adjustments to my avatar before I fully go into it. I got some new accessories to go with it that applies to basically my soul and all the ways that I display myself. That's a fancy way of saying you fancied yourself up. Oh, fresh new look, right? What better way to go jumpstart your streaming by having a makeover, a improvement, not a rebrand, right? Sweatlords try hard basement pillars. I wouldn't really call them sweatlord. I mean, it's good that they are well versed in the game. They're very skilled. It only encourages me to do better. I don't really like saying that, oh, anybody that is really skilled should not play the game so I can enjoy it. I cannot blame people that have put in the time and effort to hone their reflexes, know the game, know the weapons and maps inside and out, right? It's just they're more disciplined in what they're doing. It's a skill issue. Okay, I'm gonna go recalibrate. For now, you shall go stare into that robot while I go fix my thing. Hello, I am Robody. Calibrate FBT, put that there. Ooh. Oops. Over here. Go here. Look forward. Twist down. That should get rid of my jitters. He's just sleeping. Yes. Most probably. Oh, and so I have moved way away from my stool. Does it mean they have to play going full try hard? I respectfully disagree with that, Drax. Because I'm the person who will always give his all and his best when it comes to something I'm fighting for. I don't know about you, maybe you just slack off and whatnot, but that's not my philosophy. That stool is putting in the work. What is it called? It had a fancy name, something about variable resizing mass accommodating seating apparatus. A stool. Ever played Crossout or other build your own vehicle games? Yes, actually. I played Crossout a little bit when it first was in the beta, but unfortunately, being put into, well, essentially European servers, and then my ping is over 350. I, at the time, was unable to enjoy it because, unlike War Thunder, who handles netcode from like various countries, fine, you can shoot and whatnot, and it does not like it. How should I say this? Like network compensation is great in Crossout and World of Tanks, for example. If your ping is 500 ms, it once you click the button, the fire button on your mouse, it takes half a second before your shell actually goes flying out. So leading targets and whatnot is near impossible. And it's even tied to the driving, WASD. I couldn't play properly. But build your own games, I played Crossout. I played Space Engineers extensively. I love that game. I played. What was this thing? I cannot remember, but it's other build your stuff games. It's like you're roaming around in a field and then you blow up other people and then you can pick up their parts and put it on your own vehicle. Fun. I always try my best in the game one, right? Have you ever played Sea of Thieves, a game? Yeah, I've seen Sea of Thieves, but I've never really quite gotten into it. I don't know. Maybe it's the aesthetic. I'm not a big fan of the style. We're not playing anything nefarious, as Beth. Wish says yes. I'm kind of surprised it throws us into the Chinese service. Other games handle it well and magically have 100 ms of ping in the US. Yeah. Sea of Thieves is fun if you have a full crew to play with. I suppose I've noticed nowadays I gravitate towards games in which you are able to pick how you look. Right? And I'm not gender locked into something. Ironic, Battlefield 6 starts out as that, right? But it doesn't really matter in that sort of game because it's a first person shooter and you barely ever recognize or have time to look at yourself. Unlike an RPG in which you have to equip your agent, like in Division, for example, and whatnot. It matters a whole lot, and it's third person. But yeah. I think Vesper can agree with me on this state. I think that's why she's not playing. What's this? She's not playing Outlast or Space Marine 2 with me because you're kind of forced into a character which you don't really like self-insert as. In most RPGs, you end up with a helmet that covers your face. I'm completely fine with it. For Honor does that fantastically. For example, the Warden class, right? The only real difference in the physiology between the male and female Warden, well, obviously, covered by armor, you don't see much, is a slight reduction in body build. And then she has the braided ponytail. But being able to set your voice, like in Helldivers is a great example of being able to customize yourself without feeling strange in the body enough. You never see your face, but the lines that you say is still like male or female, which is great. I don't want to go spread democracy and then I sound girly. I'm not a girl. Few thieves have outfits you can wear. Ah, cool. One of the few times I've tried to get into multiplayer games is art. It has fizzled out mainly because the folks I tend to play with are very distant in the time zones, and it just gets too difficult to sort out skins unless we stay up super late. And I'm far too old for that. Understandable. Me, I have this weird rotating sleep schedule. With each passing day, I end up like sleeping 1 hour later than the day before. Like, hence, I wake up 1 hour later as well. Beth says, select random. Get girl 90% of the time. I don't know. That Democratic officer probably knows what you like. Perfectly understandable though, because there is a divide between choosing, like in players choosing characters. You either have the character representing you, the self inserts, that's me. I in any game and everything, I try my best to make it look like me as much as possible. I find it weird when it's like not me, unless I'm playing Kratos or something. I mean, it's cool. The story is set in such a great way that it puts you in his shoes. And then there's the other in which my friend told me, I asked him, why are you playing a girl? Are you gay? This was me when I was like 16, okay? The world was very different back then. So, like, no, it's quite the opposite actually. It's because I like staring at the girl's ass while I'm playing instead of a man's. Would you want to see a man's butt? Playing a game? It's like, you know that. So that kind of makes sense if you see the character you're playing as not as yourself, but somebody or someone you're controlling instead. Hmm. Hmm. But you see, if given the choice in a game, I would not want to control someone. If you've played with me in any game, in Discord, for example, Battlefield, I subconsciously self insert to the point that if I get shot, I do that. Oh, medic! I super immerse. I don't know why. That's why I don't do game streams, chat. It's it would end up annoying. Other players when they play they're so flat. Like yeah, moving to sector A. Oh I got shot. Oh shit, responding. Yeah. Oh, give me some ammo. It's like very cold. Music. Oh, give me some ammo. I'm out of mags. I'm out of mags. Right? I do that. I do that when I play. And it's not something I can just turn off either. Yeah, Bus made some funny deaths up all too many times, especially in a game like Battlefield. He could win an acting award. That's the thing. I'm not acting. It just sort of happens. I've yet to play a game with you. Oh, that's true, isn't it? I mean, there's Battlefield 6. We could always play that. Join Beth and I. So it's called method acting in game, according to Art. Hmm. Right, Axel? Like, you sort of just get into it so much. Hmm. Now you know a little quirk of mine. Last night in VC, you really commit. I'm sorry, Mitzi. That's how I really am. Yeah. Ah, yes. These are these video games all the kids are talking about nowadays. Did you know I cannot play Minecraft single player because I'm afraid of mining alone, like in the games. Like if I had a courage meter or like the sanity meter in certain horror games, it would rapidly deplete the deeper I go. And then I have to run up. I have to like look at my scenery outside. I have now to alt tab into Discord and pester a friend to play with me so I'm not scared. So yeah, it didn't bother me. It was entertaining to watch. Kept my sanity in place while trying to figure out stuff. All right, you were deep into machine coding, were you not, Mitzi? I still don't know what you were up to, but it looked like a whole bunch of information that you were like handling. I remember you saying something about game code. Rice. Rice is life. Mm. Oh my goodness, this is weird. I can actually see the stats now. Fantastic. Good evening, Gib. How are you? I'm doing okay. As you can tell, I'm in a different part of District Roboto. But yeah, aside from that, I'm doing okay. I was what was I doing earlier? I was doing bike stuff. Yes. I was trying to make a game do something it didn't want to, says Mitzi. And that specific thing it didn't want to do was not crash. Oh, that's important, isn't it? I remember my thing in Skyrim was Skyrim, mod it until it crashes. What would be your top pick for fantasy themed games? Ask Wolf. Fantasy. Fantasy. What has been one that stuck to me? I don't understand why I'm like, what? Do you play a lot of horror games? I feel like I need to start going back to them. Do I play? I play horror worlds in VR chat with friends and acquaintances, but horror games? I hmm. The last real horror game I played was what was the name? Evil Within 1 and 2. It was less horror. You could fight back and shoot. But the actual horror I played was probably Silent Hill 1, 3, and what else? Resident Evil, I don't really count as horror. It's like action shooter with zombies. Except the Resident Evil 7, it was scary as heck. I just watched it on YouTube. But yes, going back to the fantasy themed games that I like. Oh, I was gonna say The Witcher, but as beautiful and fantastic as the writing and world building is, it isn't quite the sort of fantasy I want to be in. It's like the stinky, British, grungy, sort of Euro stuff that happens where you throw your crap out of your window instead of having a proper refuse bin world. I think it's what you call low fantasy. What's this? Nord apparently wanted to say something, but on second thought, no, I'll be quiet. About. Put on my other earbud. The plague time garbage disposal. Yeah, precisely. Everybody's coughing, nobody takes a bath. They use such crude language. And it was a highlight of the unmajesticness of medieval times. You see, I see knights and sages and all of these things being romanticized so much. Do you know how bad it is to live during the Middle Ages? Hell, there's no toothpaste, there's no toothbrush. Soap is such a rarity. I don't even know if that proper soap. There's absolutely no deodorant. You reuse your underwear for weeks at a time. And lice, parasites, and everything in between is so prolific. You could probably host a microcosm of a zoo in your own body. I can tolerate the garbage, but I draw the line at crude language. I know. I mean, they do such a good job at it, though, right? Sounds like computer science major. Did you know that I studied the term in computer science back then? That was actually my first college course until I realized I should be in the arts, not here. And then I moved to art school. It wasn't far off from your description. There were, I had a really skinny friend, I had a kind of chunky friend, and that's it. Let's say hygiene wasn't like their priority in things. They reeked of cigarettes and, well, I say diabetic blood from all of the sugary drinks they were consuming. So they had Coke all day, iced tea, and or beer after to cope. Speaking of arts, asked Moss, have you printed up your new place yet? Or are you still getting things fixed up and settled in? Oh, I have finished renovating my apartment more than a month ago, or a month ago already. Things have been nice and dandy. Waterproofing has been doubly applied. It's now outside instead, as well instead of just on the inside. So that should deal with my micro leaks going on. Um, yeah, everything's nice and dandy. A few extra expenditures here and there with the plumbing, as I mentioned before, but yeah. Reeking of cigarettes and diabetes. Yeah, that's pretty much it, Art. There we go. Oh, I didn't know. Scrap. Ta-da. A little better, yeah. Makes sense. Good for you. Glad to know you're in a safe drive home. And I wouldn't be here if it weren't for you guys. Gosh, getting the apartment up and running really was quite the monumental goal that I was so surprised of actually achieving. You have stayed in the middle. Ah, yes. What does PDE, Axel? I'm curious as to what that means. A personal delivery of explosives. PDE.
D.
Partial differential equations.
Get fed, nerd.
I wonder who that is. But it's MOUS instead of MEOWS. Gosh. Thank you, Anonymous. brings me such joy whenever somebody unnamed, untagged, unidentifiable decides to magically conjure up some coin and then like slide it towards my pockets. Oh, that was you. Okay. Thank you, Box. Of course, I should have realized. If it's food related, who else could it be? Gotcha. Why? Because I remember you asking for recipes about food in chat, and that's not something really commonly requested. Yes, I remember that before. Oh my goodness, Fluffy moving me towards my bike. I mean my rent, my apartment rent goal. Yes. The moment I can stretch my back. Ah, okay. Oh, that feels nice. The rice was killer though. Oh, did you make the Hainanese rice thing? Ah. I did move forward. Dear Stu, what happened? Could have sworn I told you to stay there. Big stretch. A very big stretch, right? I have the recipe put into my grandma's old recipe book and then labeled it Geb's rice. I mean, when you're not exactly endowed financially, you tend to make the most of whatever you have in the freezer. So I have some raw chicken thighs, and then I have some chicken broth cubes, a bit of chives, right? Some ginger. All you gotta do is like go peel it and then go shred it. Put it on top of rice that you usually cook in a rice cooker for an hour. Toss the chicken on top as well. All the juices, the succulentness of the meat being accentuated by a pseudo slow cook. Once you open it up, all the steam, the aroma of the herbs, the very faint brothy taste, along with the chicken that just falls off the bone. Oh, fantastic. Yeah, it's the same recipe. It's the same recipe. It's the same delicious recipe. I'm currently in a food mood, says Art, where I'm putting green onions and everything. Green onions! Good choice. There we go. Enlarge. You put your chat there. The better angle. Right. I'll be lurking, says Starswell. But you lurk safe. And most excitedly, if that even makes any sense. Art says, I got you knives, so the satisfaction of chopping them, I think, is few. You just want to use your new utensils. You know, I feel the same. When just, like, it's just, like, right? With zero effort, that onion, tomato, it doesn't even squish. Yes. Mark says, I bought a ton of chicken, though, wholesale at my work. The benefits of running a grocery store. I'm confused. So you told me you run around as a tradesman fixing. What were you fixing? Like the air conditioning and whatnot. Seems like you're a very busy person. I would want some of that chicken, actually. See you, Starswell. Being able to cut tomatoes without the squish has changed my life. Right? This is fillet. Surgical, even. Axel says I got my mom a new knife with my first paycheck. That is awfully sweet of you. Eh? And then when you slight her, like, Mom, you look kind of fat today. She's like, oh, what did you say, son? Mom says this is why I work 6 days a week. I sink my trade into my grocery job and I get paid for the hydraulic and machine work when it comes out. You are a very hard worker. I hope you don't burn yourself out, Mox. I'd be worried. Mox. But for such a hard worker, I appreciate you sharing some of your spoils, like with earlier. Thank you. Things have been rather expensive as of late. God. Not only my rent has more than doubled, my electricity has increased by like 50%. So the maintaining balance to survive sort of like kind of climbed out here. I actually had to shut down some of my lights that I keep on all the time. It's just like the blue glow that you would see in my photos of the apartment. I didn't know that was consuming 150 watts. Like, I have one of those smart plugs, right, in which you could see how much electricity is being consumed. I turn it on when there's guests, which never happens because I don't really have people that visit my place. The only one other person who's dropped by my apartment, that's friends of mine in Discord or in like, VR chat, is Shopao, my neighbor. Ed. Lights got a little
Drop
brighter.
something. The lights got a little brighter, though.
I suppose it did.
Who got rid of my decimal dot 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 I like hen?
Thanks. Oh, to be ever so incandescent, just like monks. And Beth obviously will not allow the decimal to disappear because it's still there with the point 12. Oh man. I'm gonna say it. Christmas is just around the corner. How quickly time flies, doesn't it? I mean, it's just 2 more months. And then it's 2026. Huh. I mean, sorry, because it's October and,
Let's make it around 100 together with Beth.
One moment. That is most bizarre. I don't remember it. Oh, because my VR chat thing. I see. I need to lock it to head instead of hips. It's somewhere here. Oh God. Where did it go? Accessibility? You guys go
Tank
fight
will
it
no
out.
longer be repaired.
Yeah. My settings reset. So, oh my goodness, I don't remember where it is. It's in the small menu. Hold on. Oh, there we go. Lock hip. Oh my goodness, there we go. No more jitter. So what was happening was, if you have your hip locked, your body is gonna move up. I'll show you. Technical. So when you lock your hip, oh my god, I closed the menu. So with your lock hip, if you move your waist tracker, look, your body goes up and down, right?
Vina, I will not take you in my
But
helmet.
if you lock your head, it's just, yeah, that one. There we go. That's so much better. If I lock both, there we go. I think lock head is much better. I thought there was something wrong with my configuration. And it turned out it was. Now, what did I miss? Don't say it out loud. Hi, Howler, how are ya? We need to hang out again with Matthew. Actually, I need to hang out with the other guys again. I need to see Howler, I need to see Matthew, I need to see Mox, I need to see
I don't want to
Vesper,
crash
Axel,
in your
Dawn,
help anyway.
Beth. We need to watch Starship Troopers and the Palace of Popcorns. Totally not the real name of the place, but you know why. For me, 2025 has been kind of terrible, so I'm not too sad to see it almost over. Well, new year, new you. Soon enough. Hi there, Rook. How are you? I'm now suddenly craving for some good old calamares. Oh, to have it dipped in vinegar that's sweetened and some onion and a bit of red chili. I've got to wait on computer, but let me know when it's there, Raz. You can get to assembling your stuff.
All right, no more revive for you.
No more refund. What's it going on? I completely forgot I was supposed to make this larger so it's visible. I don't think you guys can really read it. But thank you. Thank you so much. You keep on fighting. You guys remind me of this meme I saw where it's Tony Stark versus Bruce Wayne, right? And they're they're like facing each other and everything. They're staring each other down. And they have money just like on every little pocket and nook and cranny they have. And then Peter Parker, me, is just like picking up all the coins as they throw it at each other. Oh my god.
And no more revive for you either.
Hi there, Music Hog. Starship Troop. Totally gotta watch it. I've heard there's many other Starship Trooper movies, but they're not the same. Ever so impatiently waiting. It'll be there soon enough. It's Amazon. Or you can always go DM Beth over here. Like, hey, Beth, where's the stuff I ordered? Expedite it, maybe?
No more carry.
Spider-Man being ever so relatable. More revives, no more carrying. So I assume Fluffy is going to get Battlefield 6, seeing how he's very good in Tarkov, which is a shooter game. We're in BF6. Oh, I did not know. I got to ask though, how many people can you have in total in a squad? 4, 5, 4. Ah, okay, I see.
You don't carry me, Axel does.
You don't carry me, Axel. Fluffy says, I am trying my best inside my B. Sorry, that it was kind of pixelated. I am trying my best in BF. Oh, okay. Yep. Game should be easy for you. I am indigenous to Poland. Alright. Hey Gab, showing the girl best. I don't know why I laughed. Hey Gab, showing the girl best friend Baldur's Gate 3. She's very much into D&D and was wondering what's it like. Oh, so you were showing her how hard it is, the mechanics to understand, right? But it's good, you and her are just like doing that all the time. Oh, I rolled a 6. What do you know? I hope you two have fun. I wonder how the romance options are gonna go. Hold on. So in BF, you have massive lobbies, but then you can only have a squad of 4. Imagine a coordinated squad of 16. That would feel bad for the opposing team. Really?
Staying
Art?
neutral in this, but just want to get this damn bar over 50%.
Thank you for getting over 50%. Disclaimer, each time the bar goes over 50% or 60, I have to do the math. That goes into my little savings instead of me straight into the pockets of my landlord, my electric bill company, and my internet bill company and water company. But they're minor. Yes. It's expensive here, man. I don't know. That's the only small itch I have in the back of my head. That your old apartment was so much cheaper. Then again, I didn't have space.
AXL carry you. I carry Axel and you. Heave weight on my back.
I am now curious to see how the troops are doing. By troops, I mean Fluffy, Beth, and Axel here in Battlefield. God, too bad I'm stuck here streaming, aren't I? Oh well. 11 cents to the Africa Twin. Each and every decimal placed goes straight into the Africa Twin Fund. Right? You accumulate enough cents. Eventually, it'll reach a million in a million years. A clean number. I'm
I'm
on
on your
back.
back, Gebbas Mike.
Oh, wow. Okay. Ironic. Why? Did you know that I actually pay rent not on the end of the month, but on each 15th of it? Because I moved in at an odd time. I signed my contract, I think, on the 13th. And then my landlord said, you know what? You just pay me on the 15th instead of on the 30th. So it's a double whammy. Usually bills are like one big gut punch every 30th, right? No, I spend on the 15th. I breathe for 2 weeks and then I have to give more electricity. I don't know if I like the scheme or not. It's like double the pressure. Thank you, Nard.
10 to the African twin.
Then to the Africa Twin. Fine, because our bar has been over half. Chat. Why I did not get as much sleep today was because I brought my bike out to the car wash, right? Scrub a dub dub. Why did I bring it to the car wash? I actually let go of the bike today. It was picked up and I bid my farewells. So currently I am transportless, if that makes sense. For me to get around, I have to actually commute to grab a cab. So I don't know when the symptoms of having bike withdrawal is going to hit in, when I'm going to start getting the shakes. Yes, Gebos is bikeless. After so many years, I do not have a two-wheeler I can just muster from my garage. And how am I gonna buy groceries? Oh my god, I have to ride the jeepney. Anyway, I did not think about that. Um, yeah, I sold the bike because I was worried that it would depreciate even further. Seeing as the end of the year is arriving and a new iteration, new model 2026 versus is going to pop out. So yeah.
You and Beth.
Luckily, because I was able to sell the bike and with enough of my savings, we are roughly, probably less, around the halfway mark of getting the bike that I've been really yearning for since 2020. And that's what I'm gonna work my butt off in order to get. Yes. So if you wanna put wheels back between Gibbs' legs, that sounds terrible. Okay, let me rethink the campaign. Let's make Geb drive again. Until we're able to make Geb drive again. Yes. There. Everyone seems to be having some big changes. Also, hi Hazard. This October. Really? By everyone, who do you mean? Me, I sold my bike and now I gotta think up of something special for Christmas then. I can't just bore you with the same old content that I keep on doing. Put stuff between Gibbs' leg again. Let's go. A bike that is no longer present, Mods. Anyway, you know how transparent I am with my goals, right? The same with the apartment. I actually posted progress on how it was being renovated and everything in Discord. Um, doing rough math, I hopefully aim to get it by next year. It's yeah, by next year. It's something I've been working towards since more than 5 years ago, and thanks to your help, we're actually getting there faster, so much faster. I'm just glad you guys are entertained with what I'm doing. Makes it feel that yapping on screen and talking with you is all worthwhile. A cat who is stripping him to get his attention. You know how when you walk, for example, I hop off the shower, right? So I'm like walking and everything, towel in my head. I have long hair. My cat would like do this, would like serpentine, slalom in between each leg that's walking, being a tripping hazard. And I know I'm not the only cat owner going through this. Time for Thanks for clarifying. Also, to freshen things up for Christmas, just put a Santa hat. Shh. We'll get there. I'll keep it a surprise. I'll make it worthwhile. God. That's gonna be so funny. That means I have to get my Blender and Unity working again. Ever since the reformat, I haven't really gotten into restoring that just yet. I need to stop. What's this? There's a lot of people around me having life changes as wish, or have their I need to scroll back up. Or have some kind of spiritual awakening. Spiritual awakening. Did they turn into shamans or something? They have like stands. Stand. Or basically their status in their lives being thrown into a different sense. Life is a dynamic, ever changing thing. I need to stop being so damn sus. When I heard put stuff between Gabe's leg again, I jumped up and was about to yell. If you were an Africa twin, Ichi, I might consider you being between my legs, sure. Wait, God, that's a terrible phrase. Like, if you put that into like a search bar in a certain website, Africa twin between. I'm gonna call it the Honda CRFL 1100 for today. My two cats love to just run around the house chasing each other constantly. They go crazy with it. At least they get their exercise, right? My cat Paul trips me all the time. Cats doing cat things. Throw some glue on there, roll around in tins. Paul is a fantastic name for a cat. It has Hey Paul! And he just replies nonchalantly, like he's your college roommate that's just making some herbal tea or something. Axiom? Is Axiom there? Hi, Axiom. What's up? Been a while. How are ya? Need to hang out in VR chat. I was about to say put between legs is definitely good. That's gonna be the campaign. Let's put the two things, wheels, back between Gibbs' legs. I need a good campaign manager for this. Mock says, my gay brain was buzzing after hearing between the leg talk, but I can't be calm. I know. My cat is called Fat Potato because he's fluffy and he does nothing but sleep and lay on my bed. Fluffy. Cat. Snake. Vesper says, give Gab the gift of good transport. That is wholesome. You're like in the class, it's such a safe answer. Don't say it. Don't say it. Don't say snake eater. Art says, let's put the things between Gibbs' legs, and by the thing we mean two wheels. Doesn't really roll off the tongue as a title. I gotta think of something witty, chat. Hmm. No, it can't be ride with Gib because it's not a touring thing we're pushing. I don't know. How do you spin for it? I'm not as creative with this slogan thing on my jigs. Ironic, I work in an advertising agency. Gonna do the brainstorm offline as I now need to go off and run my own errands. Talk to you later. Alright, thank you so much for the support. I'll see you around, yeah? Bye. Good luck with your errands. Oh, now it has my brain thinking. I wonder what we could call it. Uncripple the cripple. No, I'm not crippled per se. Hmm. Oh, come on. Where's the creativity chat? It's been a while since action. I'm having a valiant battle with my mortal enemy. Weakness. Weakness? Like physically? Are you running low on HP, Axiom? Oh my god, I got hungry all of a sudden. Operation Two Wheels. Oh my goodness, you couldn't have said it better. A little broad, but I suppose it hits the mark. Operation Two Wheels. I'm not creative. So Tate is just the type to close their eyes and enjoy while riding on a motorbike. Hello, Zinike. Difficult name to pronounce, but hello, welcome. Zinike. Geb, get everyone bike. That would be so much fun. Imagine if my community is just within the country, right? And then we can all get together on our vehicles. It's like a road trip, except we don't sit on the same vehicle. What side of the road are you driving? We drive on the right, and our vehicles are left-handed, or left-sided, right? Like the passengers on the right, the driver is here on the left. You see, it's funny because it's an anagram. Get everyone biking. Which one? Anagrams are words that if you flip them around, it's still the same thing, right? If I remember correctly. I'm not allowed to drive a motorbike, says Nietzsche. I can barely keep a normal bike upright. Anagrams are letters that stand for words. I see. I see. Don't mind me. I'm just. Oh god. Oh whoa. That's an odd angle. Zoom in. Can't I stretch without it looking weird? I have reconfigured the couch into bed mode, chat. That's why I can do such things. Where's the camera? Maybe I'm just sleepy. Probably. Also, I have no idea if my audio sounds good. I tweaked some stuff. It seems the bass was a teeny bit excessive. Can I hear it? Hold on. Check. Steam. Where's your audio? Check. One, two. 1, 2. Check. That sounds good to me. There we go. Not so bad. Okay, let's keep it that way. Sorry if you're hearing both of me at the same time. Ooh, action. Look into my eyes. Okay. So my noise gate is off. There we go. Don't hope this. We're throwing the brick. 2 gaps at once. Oh, you'd want 1 gap here and 1 gap there. Is that what you're saying? Acronym is the correct term. Yeah, acronym. Help Gebo's gear up since you switch gears depending on how you're driving. I think help Geb gear up is more of like giving him the motorcycle
Yay.
armor. Lance, hi. Nice to see you. I'm glad you're dropping by for the second day. No, for the second day. You see, Litz here came from a rather fantastical incident, right? She was driving a 36 wheeler truck down the freeway at around 300 miles per hour. And unfortunately, because a squirrel that was made of titanium crossed the road, 12 out of the 36 wheels on her truck lifted at such an angle, hence sending the vehicle careening into 27 total flips, damaging it to such an extent that it's irreparable. But thanks to the quadruple seatbelt technology that she had, she only sustained minor injuries, but still enough to sit her down and out of commission from Discord and whatnot for a little bit of a while. So, yes. And Litz is just a great driver. He's great. I'm glad you're safe, Litz. Oh, there's just a few minor scrapes and bruises. Teach wake up, hey. Oh, yes, we can see. She drives quite modest, actually. I remember when she was going like at Mach 2, when I was like shotgunning with her one time because I needed to go to the grocery, except she kind of overshot and ended up in another country. Mark says we're living in a good time for safety equipment. Glad she's okay. Of course. Let's of all people. I believe she's known as No Brake Slits, right? Yeah, but are you gonna watch Zootopia 2 in the movie theater? Probably not. It's not really high in my list of to watch movies. I'll watch it when it comes out, though, on more accessible sources. Like streaming, perchance, if they ever have released it on a streaming platform. No, no. We don't do it here. Dear. Oh, Noko Noko-chan. Oh dear. Yes, smart, clever. I don't even know if you know the anime, Chan. Aside from Litz, because she's got the mild tism for special content. Look at Axel, greeting our wayward, reluctant hero of life. Most of my lurkers are probably wondering, what the hell is Geb talking about? And they alta back to my stream and check chat for context, and they see none at all. Fantastic. Welcome to my stream. Sometimes it's the most profound wisdom you could ever hear. Other times it's, well, utter nonsense.
With your eyes, I see yours too. Now your eyes are red.
Does my camera look weird? It's not cool.
Flirting with this disaster became me. It named me as a fool we aim to be. Almost blue. Almost touching it will almost do.
There we go.
There's a part of me that's
Hey there, T. Billy. Nice to see you.
always true. All
My last job. What did I do? Gosh, things have been quiet nowadays. I think it was one of the cases involving a familiar. Oops, god damn it. It was one of the cases involving a most familiar agent. The case of Vesper. I had to dig in and do some stellar runography and actually find out what her complete name was. Hence, we've come to the conclusion that is now public information. The Starvale surname. Speaking of which, Vesper says, meanwhile, I have heavy tism over FNAF. I have got a new plushie for my birthday. Grandpa just didn't get it until last week, so he gave it to me the last time he drove me to work. Congratulations. Oi, Gabe, don't flip off the night. I was not flipping off anybody. Hello, Jay the Gamer Wolf, with an E in the back. Hi there. What were you guys playing? And welcome to the stream. Vesper lore being unlocked is always good. Ah, yes. Stitches was more of a nickname, an alias given to her because we found her out in the desert with robes that were stitched together. There can never be enough plushies, says Liz. Oh, you need to see Vesper's robe. There's a mountain, a wall of it. The wonderful game Teardown. I have heard good things about optimization and Teardown. I remember playing it before. I could not for the life of me run it smoothly at 60 and have all sorts of fun with the mods and whatnot. Did you guys have fun? Never enough. I love my comfort, says Vesper. Mark says, who needs insulation when you have all the plushies? Agree. You can't have enough. Teardown is awesome, says Axiom. Of course, you would say it's awesome. A multiplayer there soon. Multiplayer. Nice. I recently got a fried shrimp plushie. You mean tempura? Like it has the breading and everything? Oh my god, what I would do for some tempura right now. Oh man, that is so hot, tempura. Slipping the scotch tape on the side of the container you have to open and then just get your chopsticks, dip it in the sauce. Tasty. But yeah, thanks, Jade. Hope you guys have fun. If you need to go, don't let me hold you back. All right. Usually, when people go raid, they're pooped out from their own stream, and so is chat. See you around, guys. Yes, with the breading. Excellent. There is a plushy version of my dragon. Should show him off when I get to see. Yeah, nice. Oh, in game. That's interesting to see. Dev says, I don't know why they give you two chopsticks. You only need one to stand. Why is that such a Bev thing to do? Well, you see, it's two just in case your first one breaks from like, and then, right? Oh, says Litsa. Average American. Hey man, that's awesome though. Who needs a porta potty when you have a trusty shovel, right? Who needs two pairs of chopsticks when you have one that you can simply stab the food with? That's hell of a cool. I know. I wish I could have his chill energy. You think I'm unbothered, Chan? You think I'm zened out? Wait until you meet them. He is sort of like, if you know Lord of the Rings, he's sort of like Tom Bombadil, right? Just jolly, straight to the point, no an efficient path with stuff. Aggression is a fun way to eat. I take it, Beth, that you are unchallenged by burgers as well. When you see something with triple, or like in my case, I ate a burger with 5 patties on it and spam on top and bacon wrapped around. I had to open my mouth as wide as I can. I will dare not separate it into two and use my knife and a fork. No, that's blasphemy. I would like, I would somehow make it fit. 5 patties, promise. You see, I usually eat the three. It's the 3 patties. It's the three like quarter pounder patties with 2 spam slices and bacon on it and cheese sauce. It's called the Jawbreaker. The one with 5 patties, or was it 8? I think they needed a stick on it. Was called the Tombstone for $10. If you could finish it in 5 minutes, it's free. It's delicious. Check it out. Google Zark's Burgers. That's where I get it. Okay, Geb, tell me how to make spam tasty. The secret, lightly sear it. Either that, or you cook it all the way where it's like dark, dark brown peach in color. And then it's crispy. It's delicious. Tomato ketchup. Plain and simple. Or you could do spam musubi, right? You get your spam, you like torch it. You put it on top of Japanese rice, slightly vinegar and everything, form it. And then put your nori, your seaweed on it. Just eat it. You're good. Pro tip, add some Kewpie, the Japanese mayo. Nice soft bottle red cap. You can't go wrong with it. I always fork and knife burgers. I'm unfriending Axiom after stream. Waffle Cup says, let's hope the food doesn't fight back. Lids continues, my jaw would be non-existent after attempting to eat that. Oh, Lids, but I'm gonna make a joke about taking things and stop right there. Spam musubi, right? Wish? Oh, it did delicious. If only I could have some right now. God, there's this weird bed layout. There we go. I'm apparently horrid at being that use. I'm apparently a horrid being. There we go. That uses a fork and a knife with hand foods. Having good etiquette is a crime to Americans, it seems. Look, man. In the Philippines, we have a way of eating called kamay. Kamay literally translates to hands. Kamayin mo yung pagkain. Use your hands for your food. So more often than not, we would put food on a banana leaf, right? Put your rice, your savory meats and whatnot, or just grilled pork and then slice it up. And then we would use one hand like to ball, like not really ball, but like to gather the food in your hand and just delicious. I've been meaning to try Kewpie as smokes. Now I know how. Kewpie is fantastic. Always goes great with nori and rice. It's your choice of what to put on it. Little gyudon, fillets of beef or pork, and whatnot, up to you. Never mind. I used to make that a lot during my college days. I should make one again sometime. Yes. It's super easy to make. Why dirty silverware when hands work just as good? Right. You're right. More practice. Maybe we need something big. That's getting worse. Whew. Anyway, I would be full before I even eat half the burger with the five patties you were describing earlier. I can show you a picture, chat. I think I have a picture of me in the Jawbreaker. It's an IRL pic. I'll just blur my face or something. Let's get it, Laffy. Minty fresh. Had an old video saying something about like popsicle flavor. Gotta wash the hands first, says Wish. Then we eat and wash their hands again. Yes, that's how we make sure our hands are clean prior to using them, and then we clean them again after. I have so much beef because of my store. Mox, I would be the neighbor that will happily accept any of the excess frozen food stuff that you hoard. And then I'd cook them up and invite you over. Like, hey man, like you busy? Like you wanna eat? You wanna chibog? Chibog is like, hey, you wanna eat together? Like snacks. Me when I wash my hands every 5 seconds when I'm cooking. Employees. Employees what? Employees must wash hands. Oh my god. I need to. Mark says we call that a fika in the Swedish language. Fika, so chipog, snack time. Fika, nice. Chipog sounds good right now. Fika time sounds good right now. Same here. I like waste water by having the faucet on like at medium. So each time I handle meaning shh. Shh. In Denmark we call it hig. Hige. Hig. I don't know how you pronounce it. Do tell. Hig. Hige. What is this? Cannibal mid milk. Cannibalistic milk? What's it? What does that mean? Except my hands get dry so often. That is why you always like lotion. Moisturize your hands. It's very important. Cinnamon buns with milk. That sounds good. Fika is a conversation, says Mox, where you sit down, have tea, coffee, sweets, and other treats. In typical Swedish society, these conversations are good because our culture frowns upon small talk. It's a good way to catch up and connect with your friends. You frown upon small talk, really? I see. Mox says typically no meats will be consumed during a fika, but for you, Geb, I will break the rules. Breaking the rules is always fun, as long as there's nobody getting hurt, right? With food at least. It's a curse and a blessing. Trespassers. I work in a cashier as a cashier in a supermarket where we mostly sell a good mix of groceries, toys, clothes, gifts, electronics, etc. A department store. I absolutely know that some of my coworkers don't wash their hands, so I don't shake hands with anyone. It's fantastic practice, please. Especially once they came from the bathroom. Usually, most employees, out of stress from work, they they do things which makes you not want to shake their hands. Yuck, says Litsa. Summarized perfectly. Yuck. They're just trying to make your immune system Oh, sure they're not trying to. Stop, Kev. Don't use the F word that ends with A. No, I think dirt makes your immune system stronger, not other people's British butter and whatnot. I love when people cook, and it's actually good. Washing hands is essential, 100%. Litsa says, I also don't like shaking hands with people. Like, get your sweaty eye grippers away from me. In Denmark, however that is pronounced, is when you spend time with family and friends and you either have snacks or just a pleasant conversation. Yeah, Chibog is like a food trip with friends. Hey man, wanna go grab some tacos? And yeah, and then you guys like chit chat and whatnot. Have a good time. Vesper says, I don't think urine or fecal matter makes your immune systems. That's true. There is a medical application though where you transplant somebody's brown stuff to your chambers, and I you need to Google that. I'm not gonna explain. It's gross. I only got Nora once. Coincidence? I think not. Pest. Oh. I work in the food area in the supermarkets as waffle. It needed to be clean, and now I wash my hands a lot at home. Good. Keep it that way. I cannot stress the importance of having proper hygiene. It's super important. What's this? I'll help you pronounce it if I get to be in PC sometime. Sure. Probably Google it after stream. What is HYGG? Hydragea. Hydragea, yeah. Hydragea. Oh. Okay, I got a tag. In media, is this a Kawasaki versus? Yes, it is. Mine no longer. Beth and Fluffy Pussy Slitter are in VC. Okay. Art posted it on the coach channel. If you were an Africa twin, I might consider putting you between my legs. To be taken out of context would be really bad. Mitzi says I'll probably never get sick of wintergreen mint, so you're the type of guy who likes mint. So, memes. Duran. Oh man. Oh, right. There's something in the altar offering. I need to get back to that. So Iron Wolf wants to do a spell casting that sacrifices 10 levels in order for So a dice roll. Life difficult, I see. Alright. This is. Are you tired, man? I'm not gonna pronounce your name. I'll call you BB. I'm a bit. But I feel like playing VR chat today. I may linger after stream. In a while. What's this? I caught COVID once at work, says Lids. Because my supervisor. What's this? My supervisor told me to get things done quickly and not to put on safety gear. Your supervisor needs to be super spanked for what they just did. Vesper says, I would very much rather avoid infections and disease from lack of hygiene. I already got MRSA off my grandma once as a kid because she was so terrible at keeping clean due to her weight. I mean, if you have the same mass as the sun or Jupiter at the very least, I'd understand the difficulty in getting around. Vesper continues, wash your hands and practice proper hygiene. Otherwise, I won't touch you with a 10-foot pole. Please. Thanks. BB is a good nickname. Of course. BB, bowling balls, British butter. I got lucky enough to never have caught it. Instead, we offered the rest of the portfolio virus-wise. Oh my goodness. Hmm. Oh yeah, I remember Blue, no, toast sandwich tagging me in general. It was something about the sandwich with bread, all sorts of varying thing. I think there was crumpets in the middle too. I leave it to Beth to reply to that. Beth says to be fair, I wash my hands and everything consistently. But I know people preparing food and shaking hands, touching doors don't, so I still get sick a good bit. Oh, yes, it's always the fault of other people that don't put priority into hygiene and sanitation. Don't lick doorknobs. If I don't think kids would normally put the door. Never mind, I see them doing it. Like, ooh, smooth and shiny. Put it in my mouth, says young child. Far too many cases of kids swallowing ballpen caps, coins, and thankfully not doorknobs. And coins. Hello, Saphira. Instead of Saphira Pendragon, I should probably call you, Saphira Pensergal. Why, if it isn't Kudalin? They were so enthusiastic during the brief meeting we had last time. Unfortunately, I was running really low on juice. I do believe we need to give our conversations more justice by hanging out when both of us have higher fuel reserves. How are you, Kun? Litsa says, Kev goes for the rough and stony. Hey, I tried a brick as an experiment and I've come to the conclusion that they are not indeed soft and palatable after spending a long amount of time in one's mouth. They're not like bread. BB says, I had a friend who wanted to skip school, so they licked all over a doorknob at home. It was really freaking disgusting to hear about. It's really freaking disgusting to hear about. So, no. God. Ugh. Seasonal changes, Star Wars. I've seen kids lick door handles. They put doorknobs in their mouth somehow, I promise. Yuck. At some point, yes, says good. But it's a holiday. A holiday. Is it the indigenous people holiday? I think that's what I read in chat earlier. Uh, I'll be looking to get married. How about we work on the idea of you getting more sleep, Savira? Sounds good, yes. For Canada's Thanksgiving, like Happy Turkey Day? What's this? Of course, the war ensues between Fluffy and Beth. Hmm. Imagining sleep, it's a strange concept for me. Oh, definitely a strange concept for you, Mitzi. It's a. How should I say this? One of the best parts of one's day is being able to go in and just nap. Like, my friends are not online, they're asleep too. Nobody's asking me to play games, and I have no obligations to do. I can nap in peace. Finally. And that's Anonymous. Anonymous is joining the fray again. Really want to move this funny bar. Vesper says Thanksgiving for Candida, Indigenous Peoples Day for the States, formerly known as Columbus. Why was it formerly known? Yes, he says. And the second time I take that nap, I get a rude interruption that takes me away from the nap. Rude, like rude from your air conditioning, or rude because there's another person waking you up. Hey, wake up, punk. Random issues or pings on this. Oh, God. That's why I make sure to tell everybody good night. I'm gonna go turn in. Don't disturb me. Kudalan says Columbus Day was celebrating when white Europeans discovered North America and started colonizing. Ah, yes. What's so it's kind of like your school's foundation day, because right. Beth says got it when Gib says that no, Beth, no, please. Oh, I need my sleep, I need my rest. I can't drive when I'm sleepy. It's terrible. It's like I need to work on my stamina again, because if I'm going to have a bike like that and then fulfill my promise of going out on adventures, on road trips, I'm gonna need like the strength and, well, as I've said, the endurance for it. Oh, gotta double up the exercise, I suppose. Send him the most curse me, please. Anything but like that Pakistani guy with like his foot is like in close to the kettle, or the trash water. Oh, yep. You see, that's why you're getting bad karma, Litz. You don't hang out with me enough, and then all you do is send cursed memes. It needs a lot of strength and endurance when that thing right? When it's nice and hot and vibrating like for hours on end. You gotta make sure you don't fall off. Hoodlin says, look, it was ignoring the people that had lived in the US before Europeans came and started warring over North America. So folks have been trying to push back against that. If you haven't grown in NA, it probably make a whole lot of sense. Well, okay. Holiday is a holiday. Cursed memes are pretty good though, yes. And the bricks, says Norlex. The bricks. People thought it was problematic as today is supposedly the day Christopher Columbus discovered the United States trying to find India. They killed and dehumanized the natives to colonize it, so they used this holiday to celebrate Native Americans. Shockingly, despite the name change, the government could care less about them, mothers and kids. Is colonization an inherently bad thing when what you're doing is uplifting a civilization? What's this? I remember playing this game called what was it? It The City Must Survive. It was you managing a small settlement into a town, a city, around a something frozen. I can't remember. Frost Frostpunk was it? I think. But yeah, so it would put me through tough decisions, right? And I was always the sort of person that was, in the name of progress, we shall. Or, like, if it's for the betterment of humanity as a whole, so be it. A few sacrifices for the many, acceptable. Because if there are no sacrifices, the rest of us are just going to be stagnant. How can progress occur? In games, okay? In games. Yeah, I'm like the faction that always puts science first, morality second. They're not bad guys per se, but in an ethics department, they wouldn't exactly be getting rounds of applause either. Oh, Mox, I was just simply talking about the bike. You know, when you're cruising through freeways for hours on end, it does get the legs and the buttocks numb. Beth says, but they did give them some nice blankets. I mean, they had smallpox, but they were warm. Oh, yeah, right. So when you foreigners go to a land never touched by your people, you bring all sorts of like pathogens and whatnot, right? Which these people are not immunized to. Oh dear. Good says, if you're actually doing that, then it's good. But often it's used as a tool to overtake and erase civilization that was there. What I would do is see if there's anything beneficial from the civilization. If they have important culture and tradition that is not detrimental to progress, then we preserve and celebrate it. I mean, why not? Looks cool, right? Look at me. I absolutely love Christmas despite me not going to church. Oh, I see. I mean, I see Native Americans portrayed in media as, I mean, in certain movies, they're cool. They're like spirit talkers and whatnot. Though it may be a generalization. Wait, I'm trying to remember this one movie I watched. I think it was with Mel Gibson, The Last Mohican or something. How is the dear Gib doing? Says Savali. And I hope you're mighty fine. I'm doing good. Christmas was a pagan holiday. Oh, was it? Thank you for the correction. I thought Christmas was like birth of Christ. Sort of deal based on the... Because it's 25 and it's like Jesus' birthday. Unless I'm wrong. Fluffy says, high frequencies High frequency 4-cylinder vibrations are the best. After 2 hours of riding, all your lower bodies are stopped. Dear Geb, yes, I'm gonna have my funny antlers here. I think Litz would be entertained by the thought. The origins of Christmas is interesting but messy. You know what? I'm not really one that enjoys history. My grade wasn't the best in school. So I kind of just focus on the nice old holiday cheer and the songs and the overall vibe that Christmas has. It just brings me into such a good mood. I love the decorations, the aesthetics, and the whole like, Christmas spirit going on where people are nice. There's warm meals in homes, fireplaces in winter, even though I don't have winter. And generally, it's a season in the Philippines which people get together, families catch up with each other, they visit when they're from abroad. And the gifts and the Christmas ham. Food. Beth says pretty much that is the celebration, but the Catholic people put it in the same date as pagan. Oh, is that so? I didn't know that. Then again, I remember a few pastors here making a fuss. Like, Christmas is about the birth of Christ, not about Santa Claus. It's the Santa Claus part that I like. Ho, 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 ho. Here, Merry Christmas. Here, have a gift because I deem you as not naughty from my infinite bag of holding. Yes. Yes, fair. That's good. I casually consume, scroll up, consume world history fast because I find it interesting.
Hello, I am still alive.
Hi, Mia. It's been a while. Do you fancy a wage? I'm just joking. Hi there, Mia. Nice to see you again. Hmm. Christmas in winter is the prettiest and most comfy time of the year. I love it so much. Just the general time, right? Christmas was originally called Yule or Saturnalia, says Vesper, celebrating the winter solstice and giving to bring good luck and celebrate the return of the sun. What? I thought Christmas was about going to the mall and getting the Christmas discounts and people dress up as Santa Claus. And let's talk about the Christmas decorations. What's up, Kuya? Hello, Shopam. How are ya? How'd your midterms go? That was fast. 16 months. Imagine being here for almost a year and a half. Got me. But you've forgotten about me. The modern depiction of Santa Claus originated from Coca-Cola. Thank you, Coca-Cola. Yeah, it's pretty much Yule, evergreen decorations, gift giving, feasting, spiritual reflection, and themes of rebirth and transformation. Oh. Subito says, I finally get to catch a stream. Big appreciation for your positivity, outlook on life, and honestly, really easy to just listen to. Great vibes, you're pretty rad. Thank you for the kind words, Subito. I appreciate that. And welcome to the stream. As you can tell, it's I'm just doing the live version of whatever clips I post on social media. Oh wait, what's that? 5 tier 1 subs. My goodness. How generous of you, thanks. Gonna fix my car. I'll see you around. Hello? Uh-oh. Okay, so what's this? It's more of a side effect, but sure. Yuletide. In Japan, Christmas is associated with Kentucky Fried Chicken because of a Japanese franchise owner who told people Americans celebrated Christmas by going out to KFC. Thanks, KFC. I love KFC. Beware of the Yule, man. How can I forget my good partner? Howdy. Valentine's women would go around to get whipped in the public, believing it would bring good luck. Well, look, well, whatever floats their boat. People have a lot of funny practices, don't they? Casual public BDSMC is fun. What? Just gotta watch out for Krampus. Germans had to make Christmas horror. That sounds cool. I think I remember seeing a festival about that. Like the Krampus, and it looked like some Satan shit. It looked awesome. There was fire and whatnot. Fox says, I remember as a kid being scared of KFC because they had an ad on TV saying that they grow their chicken with care, and all I could envision were chickens being grown out of the ground like vegetables. That would be funny. That's kind of cute if you think about it. Instead of a head of cabbage, you just have like half a chicken like, above ground. Right, that's cute. And then just scatter some rice or like dried corn, and they're happy for the day. Every German kid's story used to be horror, just kind of disturbing, just lit. You need to tell me some of these stories sometime then. In the Philippines, we have traditions similar to Spain. España. We have a thing such as Noche Buena, which is just Thanksgiving, but we take it to another level. It's gonna be a feast. Roast pork, lechon, right? Roast whole pork over a, like, what do you call it? I don't know what they call it. But the whole burr month you need to prepare for Christmas. True. The moment it hits like September, it's like Christmas in the Philippines. In the Philippines, Christmas is very special because not only does the entire country's aesthetic change, all of the commercial spaces and whatnot they adapt, but the mindset of the people too. There's gotta be food everywhere. And now you can tell why I predominantly love this particular season. Beth says, my mom was terrified of Christmas time because her father, Grandpa, would dress up and terrify them so they will promise to be good. We already got Christmas foods in stores in late August, right? Oh. Piopaw says, a few Filipino delicacies. Lechon, lumpia, pancit, spaghetti, chicken, more lechon, Christmas ham, and that one red ball of cheese. I know what you're talking about. The cheddar, like, cheese ball. Yeah. And then Coca-Cola, of course. More lechon. Yes. Lechon is always good. Can I just stream while lying down? I'll change the camera. This is gonna look weird. Yep. Nope. Anyway. Gabos, I hope you're having a wonderful day today. Hi there, Sanford Michael. Thank you. Hope you too. Isang bowl. Yeah, the lechon here is either it's still whole where you gotta carve the meat, or it's like pa 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 pa, right? Nice. I do it all the time. I've never streamed while like lying down. The closest is like when I lean or when I have one leg up. I'll try. Let's see. Yeah. Let's switch things up. There we go. Oh wow, that is not in sync there. Hmm. How do I look? It must be funny. I'm balancing myself on top of the stool. Hi, Firehawk. It's been a while. How are you? Your bike, your back might hurt unless it's properly inclined. That's true. Now I remember. There we go. Oh, this seems. Oh, this seems so much better. Except I'm melding into my own reflection. If I do this, though, I'm gonna fall asleep, Jack. It's something we don't want to happen. They move a teeny bit, like here, there. Looks like I'm still sitting. Don't worry. Huh. Anti-fan service. Anti-fan service. The ultra rare Geb Steep Stream. This is dangerous. I am actually going to fall asleep if I do this. I'm just gonna go back to how I was. Upsy daisy. Yep, here we go. Oh yeah, take care, Kuya. Flu season. That's true. People have been getting sick left and right, from what I've heard. Quite concerning, actually. Hey, at least you're comfy. You, if we hang out, I'll probably be lying down by then. You know, Geb, you sound as old as me with all that grunting. You know me, I make sounds for dramatic effect. If you were there while I was playing Battlefield, to which Beth, Mitzi, and Vesper can attest, well, that's my TSM, right? I make sound effects for everything. Maybe I'm old. Maybe I'm geriatric. Who knows? Hmm? Yopo says high school campuses are taking 3 days online to disinfect. Oh wow, okay. Well, that's a smart measure. At least they're keeping things nice and contact free between the students. Except college, they don't give a rat's butt, according to Chopin. I'm glad my district, says Firehawk, is giving us a fall break because I've been tired as all heck. I see. But enjoy your break. That's what's important. Speaking of breaks, man, later I have to help a certain someone go assemble her computer. Yeah. Like, I have no problem assembling computers. It's more. Well, it's Vesper who's gonna be assembling the computer later. And she has never, ever dealt with anything of that sort in her life. It's gonna be fun. Oh, please follow the notch over at the CPU socket. So the arrow is pointing on the upper left. Ooh, did you close it without checking? Did you remove the plastic on top before applying the heatsink? I can already see all this happening later. Ugh. After I get a good night's rest, though. Vesper got her computer. Yes, the rest of her parts should be arriving today. Her monitor and other stuff are already there. PC buildings team. Now, if only it's secure. LTTstore.com. Shopao says XX High School is suspended from face to face classes for 3 days to disinfect. Literally, the college students in the same building waiting for an announcement. Weird, it's as if adults are more immune to the virus or something. Like me helping Blue. Ah. You see, that's the thing. After assembling the hardware, I have to go help her install Windows as well. Assembling my computer is going to be scary and fun. I will assist you once I get a few more hours of sleep, okay? I'm sure you won't mind. No, we got a really cheap 7850. No, 7800. Sorry. 7800 X3D CPU. We got our 64 gigs of RAM at 6000 megahertz. The usual 7700 GPU, which she was using as an eGPU for her lapping, storage, and whatever. The usual. We recently got her a nice 240 Hz OLED monitor, though. Great first monitor to have. We already have Windows on the drive, yes. I think her having an X3D processor, an octa-core at that, is what's gonna uplift her VR chat performance the most, along with the other games we've been playing. Oh yeah, it's very nice. And then we're gonna go, once you save SAP, we're gonna get her a better GPU even. Because now, the bottleneck is like the graphics card. Music Hog says, sorry for lefting so long. Lefting is now one of the new words added to my vocabulary. I was eating lunch and also I don't know what to say. Don't worry about it. No pressure to chat. We already have Windows on the drive, so that's one step out of the way. Yeah. Now when we get it assembled, okay? I want to do a PC building stream, says Mox. The good ending, new, better performing PC. Bad ending, Magic Smoke. At least it's content. Oh, please. Like. And then the funny smell. Is that Mystic I see? Hi, Mystic. How are ya? I hope we bring positive news about the post office. Because UPS is ridiculous with the pricing. Please say there's good news. Imagine paying $297 to ship something the size of like smaller than a shoebox. And that's outbound from the States. Oh boy. How's the last hour and 20 minutes been? Pretty good. Nothing new. Boy. Oh dear. Additional bad endings at Shop Out. Windows update, relay all its update files, then removing old unneeded crap. Darn! I am running off of probably 5 hours of sleep. So, it's not unusual for me to be yawning. Oh, hello. Eat a snack. Probably after. I still think I have 2 sticks of barbecue that I can go reheat and enjoy with some rice. He's so tired. You know what? Is my battery station open? Let me see. No, it is. I wonder what was causing it. I think it's because I reconfigured my couch into a bed, so it's certain parts aren't as how should I say this? Unoccluded. What's this? Good news is that it is cheaper. Thank heavens. Glad to be home. Nice. Thank you. And welcome home, Mystic. But what's the bad news? Oh boy. It's cheaper by $3, says Mystic. Hmm. Hello, Kendall. How are you? Pardon my yawning. A little bit sleepy. One, one. So it is being obscured. Okay. There we go. Stretch. You know what? I will do so. I will stand up and stretch. This should boost my awakeness. Oh, wow, a tiny bit. Bad news, I got a gash on my. Oh my. Oh man. A gash? How'd that happen, Mystic? A work accident? I hope it's not something that needs stitches or anything. Disinfection. Yes. Did the post office stab you in exchange for those $3? That seems to be the case. 195 is totally understandable. Please let me know when I need to pay. Thank you. I really hope it's not too bad either. If you said anything the past 2 minutes, I didn't catch it because of the ads. Oh, I was just wondering how you got your gash, and I was saying I hope you were okay. You know, that Mystic is also one of my mods. She's just busy being in many different places. So she can't be here as much. It's totally alright. I did not notice that we are already at 2 hours and 13. How quickly time flies. Hmm? So many people having to sit through ads. No, I subbed after one ad break. I couldn't stand it. Yeah. Oh no. Mystic says, oh nah, a drill grazed me. I'm tending to it. Oh gosh. That's one thing after another, ain't it, Mystic? A drill, huh? Who would that happen? A gash with like a funny, spirally sort of track going on. It's significantly better. So here, still standing the test of that. Oh, of course you will. So, Mystic, question. Wounds aside, when are we gonna have it shipped? Because I don't want to keep on pestering you in DMs. Mystic, it's Friday. Did you get it shipped? Just so I know when I can prepare to give you the post office money. Yes, chat. I have Mystic here helping me ship a package because the thing I bought doesn't ship directly to me. So, ships to the States, to her address, and then. Okay. Wednesday cost payday. Okay, sure. I mean, if you need me to send the amount after stream, I can. That I can wait until Wednesday, no worry. It seems like Reed is inviting Blue, and the others were Hill Divers. You guys go play. I'm busy today. I have to help Vesper with her computer and whatnot. Catch up on a little bit of rest. Oh my god. As long as you were not in the nosedives, I can't we got time to correct. Wait till Wednesday. I want to make sure it gets shipped and it's confirmed with no issues. Gotcha, 100%. Ah, 73% trackers. The yawn seems to be increasing in frequency, chat, and I'm gonna repurpose one of the cameras. This one. Just gonna fly. Oh, upsy daisy. What? How do I do this? Put this here, zoom in, go to the other side. Maybe a side view works. What? There we go. Doesn't look weird. What's that? Where's my pillow? Nope, that's my cat. Oh well. Oh wow, that's weird. Behavior, auto level up there. Give me a few minutes, yeah. And eyebrows from here. Right. Why are yarns too much? Yarns? What yarns? Other than yawning, how was your day? Well, I was not able to get my usual sleep at the hour of me sleeping because I had to attend to things bike-wise. I was selling my bike. I sold my bike, rather. I had to bring it to the car wash, so it's nice and sparkly clean. But yes, if no pillow, why not use your cat? Because my cat is gonna get squished. Give me a few minutes, chat. Oh. I sold my bike earlier. Yes, I let it go. So Gab is currently bikeless. Let's see how that's gonna go in the coming months. Beginning of a sleep stream. Let's see. No, I'm gonna stay awake. Ooh. This is weird. How do I even work with this angle? Let's see. Alright, cinematography go. How are you gonna do the camera angle if your subject is lying down, staring straight up at the ceiling? A bit higher. Probably like this. Ceiling shot. Yeah, but no reclining beach chair and drink in hand. Nope. I have no room to talk, but try not to fall asleep. Mystic. Yes, you would know. The resident narcoleptic. Oh my goodness, I can't extend stream at this rate. Calling it quits at 2 hours and a half. As much as I want to hang out some more. I still link in general. Let it slide. Somebody looks relaxed. Somebody can. Yeah. No, no. Where's my camera? Come back here. Upsy daisy. Where were we? Thank you for bearing with me during my 3-minute lying down break. Now, I don't know about lying down on other guys, that's not my thing. But lying down on a woman's lap or their bosom, such lovely things. A reclining chair, huh? You call it your detective smoke break. The thing is, I don't smoke. Not anymore, at least. I smoked for a very brief period during college. But thank goodness I was able to ditch the habit. Reallocate all funds towards like motorcycle stuff. Good, smoking is bad for you. I didn't even last a year. I was smoking heavily, but it was for a few months. I don't know, I enjoyed it for a bit. It was cool. A very good social lubricant. After classes during 9 p.m., I just hang out with the other smokers. I need the light, instantly strike a conversation. But then I realized these people aren't really my crowd. You see these youngsters, 18, 19 years old. But yeah, smoking is bad for your health, Chad. It's not so easy to quit if you've been dependent on it for years. That much I understand coming from, for example, my uncles who've been smoking since they were like young. And they're much older than I am. Thankfully, me, again, it was just an exploratory period. I never really got anything, teeth stains or coughs and nothing. You can be cool through other ways. I think discipline is a cool thing to have. Shows that you have the proper mental fortitude. You're reliable. You aren't a slave to a vice. May I ask when you next intend to stream? My stream schedule is still the same. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, plus 8 GMT. To the Americans, like for Vesper, for example, she's 13 hours behind. That would be on Sunday, Tuesdays, and Thursdays. Right now, you catch me when I'm kind of running low on juice. Usually, anyway. Hey, I've been doing good. I haven't docked any of my stream days as of yet. For the past month, I think. Or, well, close to a month. Did I miss any stream days? I can't quite recall. Hmm. Sometimes I have to be reminded of these things. For me, usually when on time, at 3 p.m. on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. But I'm a Brit. Your time zone and mine aren't so far apart, isn't it? 7 hours. Somewhere along those lines. I usually stream lunchtime for the West. I'm good, Mox, don't worry. Speaking of hugs, where is Vesper? I'm gonna be busy with chores, ever swamped with tasks to do. Excellent. This one. On what's for computer parts, I see. On the lookout for the components that she's gonna use to build her gaming and productivity machine. That you're able to unburden your laptop soon enough. Your laptop's been performing admirably, given the power that it has. Question: what made you become a streamer? Was it someone who recommended you? What made me become a streamer? How do I answer that question? Ah, you should know, Blue. It was by my own decision. Oh my god. It's funny how blue skin. No, it's funny how Doran has made a tank look like blue skins. Reminds me of his little fluffy blue avatar. Okay, let's not play that. We might get blocked. Necessity. Necessity for which? Are we talking about Vesper's computing? Oh, no, I never said it was necessity. No, necessary. I said it was my decision. One second of depresso music. Oh, do we need to play depresso stuff? What I have here? There we go. It was that or being homeless now. Now that I think about it, after losing my job, no, after quitting my job and placing all bets on that business that was also taken away from me, and me ending up being homeless, did prove quite challenging mentally. Whatever confidence I used to have prior diminished to, well, a fragment of its former self. I needed to find something I could do, something I could improve upon, something I was good at. So, maybe that's probably what steered me here. I wanted to share my stories, my insights, little things I've learned, I've divined wisdom from various experiences in life. Share it with those who listen. I didn't quit my Yes, I did quit my job because I wanted to try a business that was promised would work. An endeavor between people I trusted who would only end up stabbing me in the back and swindling me, making things. Sure, send it to me, Liz. Hello, Wicker. It's difficult when you're the nicest person in the room. You end up trusting too quickly. You fall for promises, honeyed words in which they call you brother, they call you family. That's why I now earn that friendship is earned. A title that shouldn't be thrown around so lightly. Call people what they are: strangers, acquaintances, people who've only had a good conversation once or twice. Just because they've added you as a friend in a game doesn't mean they're friends in real life. Share a moment, once, twice, thrice. Go through a challenging scenario together. See how they handle it, how you handle it. Observe the outcome. Was there synergy? Did you get along? Did you end up liking each other? Or simply tolerating each other's existence? You need to be picky when it comes to these kind of things. You- A friend is not a true friend until you fought together, had a drink together, and shared experiences together. That's true. That's very much true. Be careful who you entrust your trust to, Chan. In a world as challenging as today, there are many snakes about. Sometimes the one that looks nicest is actually the one with the biggest mask of all. There, did that answer my question, Nord? Icebreaker. Just joking. Anyway, reading back on the messages. Happy birthday, Kahutist. Miss Success. The cinematography has to come naturally because no way you didn't plan this and magically we're set in the scene. I don't know. Music has a powerful effect on me, predominantly one that makes you feel. It just puts me in places and invokes certain memories and whatnot. Ba, 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 ba. I gotta hop on VR chat with the boys. Have a good rest of the night, Gab. Get some rest. Take care of yourself. I'll see you around, Box. Thank you for the support today. I hope you and the boys have fun. Passing from jazz, so I don't know what music that was. That was what you call 2000s music. The music changed. Well, I didn't want to leave you guys with such a dour mood now, right? We need a Gebo movie. It's difficult to make Mystic. And the production, the planning, the execution, the distribution. That actually sounds cool though. Maybe one day, who knows? Lots of content creators out there can make like short films and whatnot, and they look great. We don't even have a Gibu plush, and you already want the movies as music hug. Ah, yes. Kahuta says, your voice is so nice. Again, I want something like this when I said it on a comment on your Instagram. You need to make a podcast with your calm voice and a good straight up sleeper voice. Isn't this the closest to what you're already requesting? You can just watch one of my VODs. My stream runs for 2 hours and a half minimum anyways. Load up YouTube. Turn off your monitor. podcast. When you say podcast, though, normally I imagine that as me conversing with another person. Like it's an exchange at the rate between you two. I hope you're doing well as well. Real though. The Geb movie first, action figures and plushies after. I think one of these days. Oh, never mind down there. One of these days, I may have to work and get a completely customized model. Don't you have a book reading project in mind for everyone? Yes, I did actually. That shell. Don't worry, I'll get back to it. There's a few stories I've already read. Oh, it says, Little cat. I imagine being on a stream, you having a conversation about the other person suffering from split personality where a new face pops every two and I don't want to talk to mental cases. Thank you. They're difficult enough to bear with face to face. But chat is like, at least chat can't jump on me, right? You're just there, you're a wall of text. Song name. This is called Corn Dog in the Shower. You too, IAT. I almost sang that song too, albeit the explicit version. Oh, the book reading. The book reading was a project I wanted to launch so I could have like a monthly Patreon sort of subscription going. People get what they want, which is me reading stories of their choice. It's audiobooks essentially, except I read it here in VR chat. There's a video. Then you get to support me a little bit better by making sure I get food on the table. It's a whole lot of work though, to the point that it's mildly it reading a story, getting to prepare it, getting to shoot and edit it. It takes hours. And then I have to think of how many stories do I read, how short is a short story, how long is a long one. I have to find copyright free material, so we're looking at old stuff like from Edgar Allan Poe. Do you think having depression can make more difficult having friends, roommates, or partners? I wouldn't know. I've never been depressed in my life. I've never allowed myself to feel down that way. Sure, I may go dive into episodes of melancholy, but to be truly depressed? No. Yet, and I don't plan to, ever. But seeing my friends who actually are, I do observe it is a challenging condition to have that can impede your function, interaction with society around you. Mystic says, I don't want to hear nothing about the mental case unless you physically have a doctor. But same here. So many people declare that they're this and that. They're self diagnosed. Yeah, sure, I'll believe you. 100%. Gotcha, Mr. Schizo. Gotcha, Mr. BPD. Undiagnosed, but everyone's pretty sure. Gotcha, Mr. DID. Oh, that wasn't my fault. It was my other personality, right? So I can't be held accountable. It's the same as people making up excuse. Oh, but I was inebriated. I was under the influence of alcohol, hence I was doing that to you. I'm sorry. No, it was still your body, your hands, your nerves actuating your physical self. You are accountable, right? Don't be stupid. Geb speaking fast. Right, Crystal? Also, hi. Lovely to see you. Vesper says, I was sort of stuck in the dumps like that for a good while. It does make things difficult, but it's so worth it once you finally break through. No longer do I think everyone hates me, and it's great to know that people I work with think I'm a sweet lady, right? It's just nice to uplift people that genuinely wish to be uplifted and is exerting maximal effort to do so. There's no sense in helping an individual who does not want to help themselves. They're a waste of time. Tell that to the cops nowadays. Hey Geb, working on Substance Painter, thanks for Nord. Working on the textures, I see. I remember him being very proud about it last time we saw each other in VR chat. Accountability is a lost concept this day and age. When people are able to hide behind anonymity and, well, society is over empathy, yeah, that kind of does get lost, doesn't it? Beth says, I used to be the same. Definitely the people you surround yourself with have a great effect getting yourself out of the dumps. Yeah, you can have a bad day, you can feel kind of crap, sure. But when you say you're depressed, being depressed is a very heavy thing to have and to declare, right? It's an actual clinical condition. If you feel sad and bummed just because things aren't going your way, it's not technically diagnosed clinical depression. You just feel shitty. But what would I know? I've never been diagnosed. I don't think I've ever felt that way. I felt shitty, yes. I was stuck in the rain 80 kilometers away from the house with my bike engine being broken. My electric bike, I ran it my batteries blew up. Shorted out, not for dramatic effect, yes. And I couldn't get home. And I didn't have money to bring myself home. Damn, what a bad day. But that's just a bad day. I'll move on. It will pass on. And so should you. Sword Bear says, I was toxic and abusive towards my ex because I was depressed. It's not my fault, it's your fault. Mystic says, it's not funny, but it is sad that I laugh when folks say they have a disorder in VR chat. All I can think of is, shit, here we go again. Oh no, I cussed on stream. I'm lying down again. Oh no, it feels so good. Stop it. It was a bad day, but I bet you learned a lot from the experience. Exactly. Crystal says, I have a whole assortment of diagnosed mental disorders. PTSD, anxiety, etc. That doesn't dictate my action. It's my responsibility to ensure I get the help I need in order to function. See? Right? Be like Crystal. You see, Crystal, unlike these fools who write these on their bios because they like romanticizing mental disorders. They like having it defining their personality. They like having it in order to fit in along with other self diagnosed nutcases who just wants attention but does not want any accountability. To be plagued by these rats. Vesper says it's a clinical thing and a genetic thing. But depression isn't just constant sadness, it's a constant heavy weight on your shoulders that you carry with you. Now, you can either let that take you down forever or pick yourself up and improve things for yourself. Get stronger. Ask not for your load to be lightened, but grow broader shoulders instead. The scene is set again, she. I don't know. What are you talking about, Mystic? Oh, thank you, Anonymous. It's the are these old tracks I have? Origin of the World. Oh, this one. Oh my god. Thanks, man. I don't know. Don't ask for your burdens to be light. Ask for broader shoulders instead. Hear me out. You already have a cinematic view when you stream. And the panning you do at the right time and along with the music and bam, a scene has been made. Oh, I just panned the camera because I'm bored. Sort of like a fidget toy, having my thumb rest on something. Ain't gonna fit through my door frame anymore with even broader show. Right. I think Fluffy here simply wants us to have a good look at this rather chiseled and steeled physique. Real Dog says, my father was sick all my life. He was one of the first people in the US to get a double lung transplant. Then he had to have a kidney transplant. Then all kinds of heart issues. Never heard him complain once or ask why me, and said he was always thankful for that next day, that next opportunity, and was always doing whatever he could do to help friends and neighbors. An admirable man, and a great example of strength, of fortitude. Walk sideways. Something else would snag on the doorframe though, and those ain't the shoulders. From width to length. Anyway, you can also wave his arms around the same way. Cast away with. What am I listening to? Something more hopeful. There we go. Seems Axel and Fluffy did get my joke. Good. Hello, Terry. Welcome. I'm doing alright. Thanks for asking. I was sleepy earlier, but now, well, I'm feeling a little better. Seems like whatever was making me doze off has gone and skedaddled. Hence, I'm able to go past the 2 hours and a half mark. Hello, Data. Kepu, do the leaves change color over your way? We don't have the autumn as what you guys would have, where everything's turning a shade of wine, orange. But some trees here do show seasonal changes, but not in the way that you would think. It's either the leaves are there or they would dry out and fall sometimes. Yeah, of course. I wish the leaves changed here, says Crystal. Texas is like no fall season. I'm curious. Hello, Hans. Car was almost gone. I miss watching the leaves change, says Beth. It's such a nice ride with all the yellow and red, right? I too would wish to see the leaves of autumn, of fall. One day, perchance. That's a hopeful thought. Oh, hang on to it. It's spectacular when I get to see the leaves at their peak color. Agree. I got very lucky the few years I lived up in the Carolinas to see some brilliant autumns. I truly envy you guys with 4 seasons. Well, on certain aspects. I don't think I'll be a fan of driving over ice, the black ice especially. The Mystic here tells me about how she slides around the road. It's kind of funny to imagine. Not the mean Mystic, like I'm in her car. And we just start drifting. End up in a ditch. We laugh. Watching the leaves fall is like watching cherry blossoms fall. The both are such a beautiful sight. I bet. I'll drive in snow but not ice. Oh dear. There goes my headset. Yeah, I know, buddy. Where did my other power back? Oh, there it is. Running low on power, chat. Swap out, swap in. And we're back. Tried it once, my car won the ice capades in the parking lot. That's fun. With success. When you have a mama and a stepmama teach you how to drive, you learn how to drift for days like that. Well prepared. Wow, we've actually hit 3 hours. That should Go, maybe. I don't know. Was online in BSC. Ah. Oh, this is Genshin. Let's listen.
Aluna kan lagon trikra neme enatrateida
Oh.
avisex urbe oria firte indicia mea ave fete kata kara
Hearing the music makes me want to find autumn themed worlds in VRChat. I mean, go for it. Answer your call to adventure. Autumn. What song is this? This was sent to me by Litz, a song request. It's called Nod Cry Main Theme. The live performance. It's from Genshin. Yeah, it's nice. Oh, I found it. I didn't think we'd listen to this. Genshin scares me. I have a gambling problem. Yeah, wait. Wait. That puts me in an MMORPG mood. You can listen to it if you want. I wanted to listen to this one track. There we go. I need to do that, says Mystic. Gotta bring my friends to the world of yokai together. A yokai themed VR chat world. Is there such a thing? I am flying. Oh. Nice. All sorts of monsters. I remember reading a manga about a yokai. I mean, she's not really one of the scary ones. Have you ever heard of this manga called Oroku Harukobi? I think it's the girl with the neck that stretches long, and she's a high school student. Oh, oh, it's a short song. It's this one. There we go. So you do know it. Nice. Kind of reminds me of the fairy fountains. That's true. I always had the most mesmerized expression whenever I would throw something. It would give me something stronger in return. Like my sword turning into the magma sword. Maybe after this song, I Should I go, chat? You guys got lucky. It's already 3 hours. I probably should. Oh my god. At the same time, I just wanna chill and go through Spotify. I'm like in one of those modes where I wanna discover new tracks to sing. You should go rest. We'll always be waiting for you. Sure. You'll catch me again on Wednesday. I'll see you and you will deserve rest. Alright. So be it. After the song, I go. Oh. You're going to need rest, Gab, if you're going to help Vesper. That's true. I have to help her build her computer, huh? Shucks. That's gonna be a fun time. Not redeem. Anyway. She needs your expert guidance. I'll try my best. I mean, he did convert the scouts to bed mode. That's true. I can very much just lie down. Sleep stream. God. I should give me another. If I turn, put my body here, it's as close as you can get. My stuff is like 6 blocks away. Yeah? Going to leave, already getting ready for some BRC. See you and have a good rest. See you around, Fluffy. Good thing he doesn't sleep as soon as he lays down. I think you're the only one with that superpower between us, Misty. Damn, song ended. Oh my god, this track. You hear this like by default from those worlds in VR chat. So much that I'm called a narcoleptic. It's true, Mystic does magically fall asleep the moment she like lights out, like, and she's out, lights out. I miss that ability.
Love is just if I let it linger.
Oh no, this ain't the short one. Right. Damn. That's magic, honestly. The streamer with the cool Nordic music is live too. Watch my viewers plummet. See a chat go. They're hot. A Nordic streamer, which I'm totally not about to check out. Oh wow. So, oh, of course. The first row of most viewed streamers, e-girls. The second row, e-girls. The third row, I cannot tell because they're all censored in the thumbnail. And here I am resting on the fourth. Yes, lovely. Isn't this Litz's avatar? It's always those darn e-girls. Gabe could suddenly amass 1 million Nordic viewers. I think I'm a niche within a niche. We need to push you up to the top. We gotta beat those e-girls. I gotta be an e-girl myself in order to combat these evil. I'm just joking. They're doing great at what they're doing. E-girls scare me. Oh, how so? Yeah, hot tub stream. Hot tub stream. Yeb can tape 2 balloons on his chest and call it a day. I think Kudalin talked about an asset existing in VR chat. That is exactly that. It's like a over exaggerated bahonkadoos, but it's made of balloons. Hmm. I never shivered so bad when I put on an eagle. Yes. Hot tub streams, a lot of my interactions, they were unnecessarily rude, over sexualization, my goodness. Just to reveal a little bit of skin. Right, like this. Bam! Expedition outfit. Coatless. I don't know, I don't think I'd look very nice without clothes on, chat. I am curious though. To see Vesper, to see Mystic in human avatars. And then we see Litz with the furry one. Just for fun. I think Litz is the only person in our friend group who actually has a human avatar as a main. An art of human Vespi mystic. Oh, that's gonna be interesting. Mystic's gonna be like because she's so shallow, right? Her height is always just going to be here. I tried that once and was like, no, it's a Snorlax. A human Abby, that is. Uh, what? Oh my gosh. It'd be interesting to see. Okay, I've been a human Abby. No. Now what avatars do I have saved here? Unlike my Abby, I'm blonde. What do I have here? I don't have anything. Damn. Let's have the Tiger Bee, the Volper, the Dergata. Let's see. What do you mean dangerous? Shaking my head. Don't question Liz or she will get the bricks. Hmm. Oh my goodness, that's true. We've extended, haven't we? Unlike my Abby's eyes, mine are a deep dark brown that they look black from a distance. So you have eyes the same color as coffee candy, the black one, giving me ideas, sir. Let's mix cute art. I still wonder how her sculpture is doing. Or, her full body tracking is doing. But in all honesty, I'm more concerned if you even still have your VR capable of, being up and running. I gotta have a human give to. Gosh, what would I even look like? I was told my eyes are green, but I can't see. To be colorblind. Oh no. No, no, it seems the audio on my phone has cut out. When are we gonna see each other in the VR chat again, let's. All but escaping. Oh dear, oh my. Hi, Axel. How are you? Welcome back. Oh, wait. We gotta play that song. Hello, Axel. Ayun, ayun. I'm doing alright. How are you? The man, I come here to get some optimism, and you do this to me. What? This is a cheerful song, right? It makes you think of good memories. Past memories. Hear it too. Read. One more time for extra depressive. Heavy rain. Huh? I don't know why this just hit, but yeah, with a certain AI, not that I know of, we're accepting of pretty much everything. I mean, they shipped the Focus Vision to my place. Ah, well, take your rest, evidently. My stuff is here. Congrats, Wes. At least you have your stuff. As long as you declare that the headset does not have batteries. That's I like this item is electronic with no batteries at all. Damn, Axum's not here anymore. I can't keep on playing depressing shit. Go back. Ah, yes. It's the Delta. Time stood still. It's not that one. Hold on. Oh my god. Don't like that. I'm in the middle of no end space. Here you go. This one's for you, actually. You just you just there in space. Stay around, Misty. Imagine Axiom just flying into the middle of the space, going exploring like lunar surfaces and everything, all alone. Yeah. Why am I even doing all this? He asks. Having fun yet, lurkers. By the way, stream's over. You can go. Thanks for joining me today. Am I procrastinating from the eventual PC building? Shit, I need to go, don't I? Stream ain't over until I'm forcibly removed. I see. I will scare you away with my music. Ah, yes. Look at you, so beautiful. That's Christmas music. Ah, yes. Grandpa Nordex will come and visit. Give you all gifts if you behave. You should start speaking in Filipino to scare everybody off. Maligayang Kapaskuhan, mga kaibigan. All I want for Christmas is you. Pizza di pasta. Paperiputi. There you go. Are you smiling now, Axiom? Are you happy? Ferrari. Ducati. Happy actually means yes. Oh shit. Wait. Forgot about this track. Bye, Axiom. See ya. I undepressed you. You may now shoo. Okay. Seeing as my viewer count is increasing instead of decreasing. Makes me consider, do I want to continue listening to music? No, it's okay. I gotta rest. I gotta sleep. Westeros is gonna pester me any minute now because I have to go. Yes. You know, as seemingly unlayered Risco Brain is, I actually dig the lore, the story, and the world. Where you realize you're the bad guys all along. Folks are getting off work and discovering their world. Folks are getting off work. Is that so? I have Risk of Rain too if you want to play sometime. Hold on, hold on, hold on. I'm saying something at my throne. Oh my goodity goodness. It seems somebody really wants me to have that articulation, huh? Hmm. Thank you, Anonymous. But I'm focusing all my funds on the bike at the moment. I can't go around. I can't go to a grocery without walking or taking the commute. Hopefully by next year, sometime next year. Imagine having functional fingers. Imagine having functional leggies in which you could just like, right? Oh, if only somebody would fix her FBT to be uncrippled. Un-go-go loco. Should change your throat. You know what? That's true. I'll update that this week. But I'll still get the wood cap though. Always down to Risk of Rain. Yes. Man, look at me. I got leggies. Balance. Ooh. Get your VR fixed, Liz. Hello, Herman. Uh-oh, I closed my overlay. Disabled me is confused. Meta sucks. I don't know, man. Mine's working so far. I don't know why yours ain't. Look at those functional leg slits. Oh, to have ankle rotation. USB issues or the skill issues. Anyway, this song's awesome, isn't it? Super. I'm gonna replay that part actually. It's too good. This is part. Dang. Gonna see me dance, Reed. This is just gonna. Are you happy now, Gip? No, Lid. Shit, I have to go. Chat, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. I have to go set up a computer with certain someone, so...
Love is just a history that they may prove, and when you
I'll see you on Wednesday, right?
my religion is you one pound
Come on, shoot,
comes
shoot.
to kill a king
Stream's
on
over.
his throne, a
Goodbye.
man before
Skedaddle, dude.
I'll dance with my hands above my head.
Bye.
Like Jesus said, I'm gonna dance with my hands above my head. Hands together, forgive him before his
Again, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and good night, chat. Wednesday, hopefully same time around midnight. You have a good Monday or Tuesday, Sunday. Bye.